On my third day driving for a ride-hailing app, I picked up a female passenger who was completely wasted. Early the next morning, the police knocked on my door at the station. The woman pointed straight at my face and screamed, "It was this driver. He raped me while I was drunk in the car. I'm still bleeding down there." Her boyfriend lunged at me, trying to punch me, but the officers restrained him. People at the station started pulling out their phones to record, shouting insults like scumbag and pervert at me. An officer who wore a gloomy face asked, "Do you have anything to say for yourself?" I calmly took off my baseball cap. I even thought about unbinding my chest. "Officer, there's something I'm really curious about. I'm a woman. With what exactly would I have made her bleed?" The young officer taking the statement froze for a moment. His eyes flicked between my flat chest and my Adam's apple. I cut my hair into a buzz cut. For safety purposes when driving at night. I was wearing a chest binder and I deliberately lowered my voice as well. Cup. With my height of 5 feet 19 inches, it was easy to mistake me for a man. The officer cleared his throat and said, "ID." I took out my identification and slapped it onto the table. On the ID, the gender section plainly read female. After verifying the information, the officer's expression softened. He turned to Aileen Hayes and asked, "Look carefully, she's a woman. How could she have raped you? This must be a misunderstanding. Were you too drunk and remembered it wrong?" Aileen stared at my ID, her eyes practically bulging out of her head. Her face was filled with disbelief. "That's impossible. The ID must be fake." She shrieked and lunged forward, grabbing my collar. "He's a man." I felt it. That strength in the car. Only a man could have been capable of that. "Officer, don't let him fool you. He must have had surgery. Or he's some kind of perverted crossdresser." I slapped her hand away and said coldly, "Lady, want me to drop my pants right now so you can check for yourself?" Aileen kept trying to make a scene until an officer shouted at her, "This is a police station. Keep it up and you'll be detained." System confirms the driver is female, biologically female, with no record of gender reassignment. That settled it. Nelson Mullins's face turned red as doubt was written all over his face when he looked at Aileen. "Didn't you say he was the one who made you bleed? If she's a woman, then why were you bleeding down there?" Aileen panicked. She suddenly clutched her stomach, squatted on the floor, and burst into tears. "I don't know. I fell asleep in her car. And when I woke up it was already like that." "Nelson, are you even a man? I'm already in this state and you're still doubting me?" Some of the onlookers who had started to leave immediately gathered again. Someone whispered, "Maybe this driver got a fake ID just to harass female passengers." Yeah, there are plenty of sick people these days. At this moment, the officers were clearly fed up with Eileen's nonsense. "That's enough. You should provide evidence before making such claims." "Was there an audio or video recording in the car?" an officer asked. I nodded. "Yes, but the memory card was full last night. I don't know if it overrode anything. I'll have to check once I get home. Then leave the equipment here. Both parties can go home, wait to be contacted." I signed the paperwork, put my cap back on, and prepared to leave. Just as I stepped out of the station, Aileen rushed after me. She grabbed my sleeve, her eyes full of venom. "Don't think you can just walk away. You caused a fight between Nelson and me. This isn't over." I shook Aileen off. "You're insane. Get your head checked. I thought it was just a farce. If I pulled the dash cam footage, everything would be cleared up." However, I underestimated just how vicious this woman was. Back at my rental room. I was about to export the video when my phone suddenly started vibrating nonstop. Notifications came flooding in. There were hundreds of text messages, and even my social media account was popping up with endless friend requests. As I played the video that was constantly being sent to me. On screen, Aileen was sobbing hysterically. Her voice was hoarse with emotion as she accused me of rape. My shout of claiming to be a woman was cut out completely, leaving only the footage of me, red-faced and flustered. I looked like I was trying to explain myself. The caption was horrifying, ride-hailing horror. Perverted driver rapes drunk female passenger, then walks out of police station using connections. Tim's boyfriend breaks down on the spot. Police suspected of cover-up. The comment section was filled with hundreds of thousands of messages, all cursing me. Why does a monster like this deserve due process? Torture him to death. I know where he lives. Anyone coming with me? I've got a knife. Today we deliver justice. Castrations. Too easy on him. Tie him up and let a pack of dogs have him. Let him have a taste of it himself. My phone number and home address were pinned at the top. Even photos of my parents have been edited into black and white funeral portraits. Before I could even catch my breath, my landlord called. Casey, you piece of trash, get the hell out of my apartment right now. Someone just poured glue into my door lock and dumped feces outside. How am I supposed to rent out this place now? I tried to explain. It's all lies. Please listen. Hell no, I've never seen a pervert like you. Forget the penalty. Pack your shit and get out now. Then the ride-hailing platform notification came in. Due to suspected involvement in a serious crime and the severe negative social impact caused, your account has been permanently banned. We'll fully cooperate with police investigations. My job was gone. My home was gone. The whole world was pushing me toward death. I collapsed in the darkness, gripping the dash cam memory card in my hand. As my hand trembled uncontrollably, I plugged it into my computer. The screen flickered, then a gray dialog box popped up. Severe physical damage. Data cannot be read. In that instant, my blood turned to ice. I suddenly remembered Aileen outside the police station, lunging at me like a rabid dog. In the chaos, my bag fell to the ground and she stomped on it hard. Just then, violent banging erupted from outside my door. Nelson's beast-like roar was heard next. Casey, you cowardly piece of shit. Get out here and die. Eileen's sobbing voice followed. She sounded pitiful and fragile. Guys, it's here. That animal who ruined me is hiding in there. Please help me. I really don't want to live anymore. Through the people, I saw the hallway packed with people. Nelson stood at the front, thick-necked and scowling, with a baseball bat in his hand. Called the police immediately, but before they could arrive, the security door was forced open. Nelson charged in. Without giving me a second to speak, he swung the bat straight at me. I screamed and collapsed to the floor. Cold sweat instantly soaked my back. Fucking bastard. How dare you lay a hand on my woman? He was completely unhinged. Every blow was filled with pure malice. I'll skin you alive if it's the last thing I do. I could only curl up and protect my head, choking on broken sobs. No one tried to stop it. Someone even stepped on the back of my hand just to get a better camera angle. They shouted excitedly into their phones. Guys, this is the rapist. Get a good look at his face. The top gifter is going crazy. 10 rockets if you break a leg. Break his leg. Beat him to death. Trash like this shouldn't be left to live. Aileen stood in the middle of the crowd with her arms crossed. She didn't try to stop them. Instead, she was fanning the flames. Nelson. Break his hands. Those filthy hands touched me. Cripple them. Kick him in the crotch. Make sure he can never be a man again. The sharp crack of bones breaking made my scalp go numb. The pain exploded, my vision went black. And a metallic sweetness surged up my throat. I spat out a mouthful of blood and foam, clinging to the last shred of consciousness as I stared at Eileen's hypocritical face. Voice came out hoarse, Aileen, you'll pay for this. She looked at me with nothing but contempt. Pay for it. Please, Casey. Didn't you think about the consequences when you raped me? Go to hell. Just seeing someone like you alive makes me sick. Finally, sirens wailed in the distance as Nelson was dragged away. He kept thrashing and spat a thick wad of phlegm straight onto my face. This is disgusting. He got my hands dirty. Meanwhile, I was hauled into the ambulance like a dead dog. Just before I sank into complete darkness, I saw Eileen's face twist into an instant mask of fragile innocence. Sorry for wasting public resources. My boyfriend just acted out of impulse. He was only trying to protect me. I want to be kind too. But what about me, the real victim? I spent 3 days in the hospital. 3 broken ribs, a pulverized left hand, and a major concussion. Aileen became the most beautiful anti-assault advocate, raking in hundreds of thousands from 3 days of live stream sales. Countless people hailed her as an icon. On the contrary, I became the universally hated rapist, pervert, and scum. My phone was flooded with messages wishing me dead. Even the nurse changing my bandages looked at me with open hostility. She ripped off the gauze that had fused to my flesh, completely ignoring my trembling. Ouch. I sucked in a sharp breath from the pain. She shot me a cold glance. Disgust was written all over her face. That hurts. She deliberately pressed harder on my wound. It hurt her 100 times more than this. I wanted to explain, but no words came out. Not long after, Aileen came to visit me. She didn't bring Nelson along. She brought 2 assistants and a phone. She was live streaming. The moment she entered the ward, she dropped to her knees beside my bed, sobbing dramatically. Casey, even though you hurt me, I'm a kind person. I don't want to push things too far. If you agree to one condition, I'll write a letter of forgiveness so that you won't go to prison. I watched her coldly, seeing straight through the act. The live chat exploded. She's too kind. Why give trash like him a chance? Our queen's got a heart of gold. Aileen wiped her tears and finally stated her condition. Nelson was arrested for beating you and has to pay for your medical bills. And I broke up with him because he claimed I'd lost my innocence. My reputation is ruined. I've lost my boyfriend, I've lost my job. You owe me, I whispered, barely able to get the words out. Oh you? How? A sharp glint flashed through Eileen's eyes. She turned to the camera and announced loudly, I want you to marry me. Since you ruined me, you'll be responsible for me for the rest of my life. And you're signing all your assets over to me as a wedding gift. That's what you owe me. I almost laughed from sheer anger. Aileen did not just want to destroy me. She also wanted to drain me dry. Unbelievably, the live chat erupted in applause. Make him grind for the rest of his life to pay for it. Aileen is savage. That's exactly how men like this should be dealt with. Say yes. You don't let him rot in prison. Aileen stepped closer and lowered her voice. If you don't agree, I'll make sure your parents get hit by a car the moment they step outside. I know where your family lives. I even know you've got a younger sister. Still in elementary school. Family was the boundary I would never allow to be breached. And she. Casey felt every muscle in her body go rigid. Her parents had already gone into hiding after strangers began throwing bricks through their windows. Her little sister had stopped going to school because people kept shouting that she was the rapist's sister. Now Aileen was threatening them openly. Casey looked at the live-streaming phone. More than 200,000 viewers were watching. Aileen wore the expression of a grieving saint, but her lips barely moved as she whispered. Smile. Nod. Or I'll bury your whole family. Casey slowly closed her eyes. Fine. The room exploded with applause. Aileen immediately stood up and hugged Casey for the camera. I knew deep down Casey wasn't completely heartless. The comments flooded in. See? Guilty people always admit it eventually. She's finally taking responsibility. Queen Aileen wins again. Only Casey knew what had really happened. That evening, after Aileen left, another visitor quietly entered the hospital room. It wasn't family. It was the young police officer who had first taken Casey's statement. He closed the curtain. I can't stay long. Casey stared at him. If you're here to arrest me, do it. The officer shook his head. I'm here because something doesn't add up. He placed several photographs on the bed. They examined Aileen at the hospital. Casey frowned. And? The doctor couldn't find any signs of sexual assault. Casey froze. What? The officer continued quietly. There was bleeding, but not caused by rape. He slid over another document. It appears she had undergone a cosmetic gynecological procedure 2 days before your ride. Casey's eyes widened. So she? We're still investigating. The officer lowered his voice even further. But someone from above keeps pressuring us to close the case. Someone influential is protecting her. Meanwhile, across town, Aileen was celebrating in a luxury hotel suite. Champagne glasses clinked. Her assistant laughed. Another 3 million followers today. Aileen smiled smugly. And the donations? Over $600,000. What about Casey? Everyone hates her. Aileen leaned back comfortably. Perfect. Just then her phone rang. The caller ID showed only one letter. N. She answered. A cold male voice spoke. You've gone too far. Aileen frowned. What? I told you to ruin the driver. I never told you to turn this into nationwide news. Her smile faded. I made us both rich. You also attracted attention. The man's voice became icy. The hospital records weren't erased completely. Eileen's fingers tightened. Impossible. There is one more thing. The driver isn't the person we're looking for. Silence. What do you mean? The woman you framed was never our target. The call ended. For the first time since everything began. Aileen looked genuinely afraid. Back at the hospital, Casey's phone vibrated. An unknown email had arrived. There was only one attachment. Recovered_cam_clip.mp4. Casey's heart nearly stopped. The memory card had been destroyed. So, Who had recovered the footage? Hands shaking, Casey pressed play. The video began several minutes before Aileen got into the car. Then a second passenger entered. A man wearing a black baseball cap. He sat beside Aileen. Neither of them noticed the interior camera had briefly resumed recording after the memory card glitched. The man handed Aileen a thick envelope. Remember the script. Aileen counted the cash. No problem. What about the driver? The man chuckled. Doesn't matter. We just need a random scapegoat. Casey stared at the screen in disbelief. Her breathing became ragged. She wasn't targeted because of something she had done. She had simply been unlucky. Then the man's face turned toward the camera for less than a second. The frame froze. Although blurry, Casey recognized him immediately. He wasn't a stranger. He was the ride-hailing company's regional operations manager. The very person who had personally approved her permanent ban. And beneath the video was a single anonymous message. Don't trust the police yet. Someone inside the department is working with them. If you want to survive, disappear before sunrise. Casey read the message 3 times. Every instinct told her it could be another trap. But if the video was real, it changed everything. Someone had framed her before Aileen ever stepped into her car. A quiet knock came at the hospital door. The same young officer entered again, looking far more tense than before. Your discharge papers were just processed. Casey frowned. My doctor said I'd need another week. They didn't come from your doctor. He shut the door behind him. I checked the system. Someone higher up ordered your immediate release. So they want me out? He nodded grimly. And there are already reporters waiting downstairs. Casey's stomach dropped. If you leave through the front entrance, you'll be surrounded within minutes. She hesitated before showing him the anonymous email. I got this. The officer watched the video from beginning to end without saying a word. When the operations manager's face appeared, his eyes widened. I've seen him before. You know him? He visited the station yesterday. Casey's heart skipped a beat. What was he doing there? He said he was cooperating with the investigation. The officer looked at Casey. I don't think that's why he came. 30 minutes later, Casey left the hospital in a wheelchair wearing a surgical mask and a hooded sweatshirt. The young officer pushed her through a service elevator instead of the main lobby. As they exited through the loading dock, shouting echoed from the front entrance. She's coming out. Where's the rapist? Camera flashes exploded from the other side of the building. The decoy had worked. The officer quickly helped Casey into an unmarked sedan. You have somewhere safe? Casey shook her head. My parents already fled. He handed her a business card. Go here. It belonged to a retired digital forensics expert named Professor Daniel Shaw. He taught me at the academy. If anyone can authenticate that video, it's him. Meanwhile, Aileen was live streaming again. She wore white, sat in front of flowers, and spoke softly to nearly 1 million viewers. I've chosen forgiveness because hatred only creates more hatred. The comments poured in. An angel. Protect Aileen at all costs. Suddenly one of her assistants rushed over, pale-faced. Aileen. What? The hospital. They released Casey. Aileen smiled. So? She disappeared. Her smile vanished. What do you mean disappeared? Nobody knows where she went. Before Aileen could answer, another assistant burst into the room holding a laptop. We've got a bigger problem. What now? He turned the screen toward her. An anonymous account had uploaded a 12-second clip. It showed only one thing. Aileen accepting a thick envelope from a man before entering Casey's car. The man's face wasn't visible. Neither was the conversation. But the clip was enough to make people ask questions. The comments, once full of praise, began changing. Why was she taking money? Is this edited? Where did this video come from? Can someone explain? Within 10 minutes, the hashtag envelope video climbed into the trending topics. For the first time since the accusations began, public opinion stopped moving entirely in Aileen's favor. She stared at the screen, her breathing quickening. No. She immediately called the operations manager. He answered after several rings. What happened? She demanded. I don't know, he replied coldly. But whoever has the full recording is no longer hiding. Both of them realized the same terrifying possibility. If the entire dashcam footage surfaced, everything they had built would collapse overnight. Professor Daniel Shaw's workshop looked more like a museum than a lab. Old hard drives, circuit boards, and forensic tools covered every shelf. He adjusted his glasses as Casey handed him the damaged memory card. The hospital officer said you might be able to help. Daniel examined it under a magnifying lamp. Someone didn't just step on this. He looked up. They deliberately crushed the controller chip. Casey's heart sank. So it's impossible? For an amateur? Yes. A faint smile crossed his face. For me? We'll see. He carefully removed the flash memory from the broken card and connected it to specialized recovery equipment. Give me a few hours. Elsewhere, the anonymous 12-second clip had thrown the internet into chaos. Some people still defended Aileen. It could have been taxi fare. Someone's framing her now. But others weren't convinced. Why was the envelope so thick? Who was the man? Why wasn't this shown before? Major news outlets began reporting on the controversy instead of treating the allegations as settled. For the first time, reporters started asking questions instead of repeating accusations. That afternoon, the young police officer received an unexpected summons. Inside the conference room sat 3 senior officials. One of them slid a folder across the table. Officer Ryan. Yes, sir. You've been reassigned effective immediately. Ryan frowned. May I ask why? Conflict of interest. I don't have one. You've shown excessive sympathy toward the suspect. Casey. Not the victim. Not the accused. Just the suspect. Ryan realized they had already decided the outcome. When he refused to sign the transfer papers, another official leaned forward. Drop this case. For your own career. Ryan silently stood, picked up the unsigned papers, and walked out. The moment the door closed behind him, he pulled out his phone. We're running out of time, he told Casey. They're cleaning house. Late that night. Daniel suddenly called from his workshop. Casey. His voice sounded excited. I got something. Casey hurried over despite the pain from her injuries. Daniel played a recovered video. The quality was damaged. Frames skipped. Audio crackled. But it was enough. The footage showed Aileen getting into the car already visibly intoxicated. 10 minutes into the ride, she received a phone call. Her drunken speech became surprisingly clear. She laughed. Relax. The driver has no idea. I've done this before. Casey froze. Daniel paused the video. Did she just say? Casey nodded slowly. I've done this before. Daniel continued playing. Aileen kept talking into the phone. The last guy paid me $2 million just to drop the charges. This one's poor. So we'll squeeze him differently. Casey's blood ran cold. She wasn't Eileen's first victim. The room fell silent. Then Ryan spoke. If this recording is authentic, it doesn't just clear your name. It proves a pattern. Daniel looked grim. Which means there are probably other victims. Casey clenched her uninjured fist. They deserve to know. Before anyone could say another word, every light in the workshop suddenly went out. Darkness. Then. Crash. Glass shattered at the front of the building. Daniel whispered, nobody move. A red laser dot appeared on the wall. Then another. And another. Someone outside wasn't trying to break in anymore. They were aiming weapons through the windows. A calm voice echoed from a loudspeaker outside. Hand over the recovered footage. You have 30 seconds. Or everyone inside dies. Daniel reacted instantly. Get down. All 3 of them dropped behind a heavy steel workbench just as another window exploded inward. Glass rained across the floor. Ryan drew his service pistol and peeked toward the shattered entrance. I only see one vehicle. Daniel shook his head. No. They want us to think there's only one. He pointed at the red laser dots. 3 different angles. At least 3 shooters. Casey's pulse hammered in her ears. They're willing to kill over a memory card. Daniel looked at her. They're willing to kill because of what's on the memory card. The loudspeaker crackled again. 20 seconds. Ryan quietly reached into his pocket and pressed the emergency distress button on his police radio without speaking. No guarantee anyone would respond. If the corruption reached as high as he suspected, the signal might simply be ignored. Daniel leaned toward Casey. Did you bring your laptop? She nodded. Good. He plugged the recovered storage chip into it. I've already made 3 copies. Casey's eyes widened. 3? Daniel smiled faintly. I've been doing digital forensics for 30 years. The first rule is never to leave yourself with only one copy. He inserted another flash drive. The second rule is to make sure destroying one copy accomplishes nothing. Outside, a black SUV pulled up. A man in a tailored suit stepped out. Even from across the parking lot, Casey recognized him immediately. The regional operations manager. He wasn't hiding anymore. He walked toward the building, clapping slowly. Professor Shaw. I've heard you're difficult. Daniel answered loudly from inside. I've heard you're a criminal. The man's smile disappeared. I'll ask one last time. The footage. Daniel laughed. You're about 6 hours too late. The manager's expression changed. What did you do? I uploaded encrypted copies. If I don't check in tomorrow morning, they're automatically sent to dozens of journalists, prosecutors, and cloud servers. The manager's face darkened. He couldn't tell whether Daniel was bluffing. Inside, Casey whispered. Did you really upload them? Daniel didn't answer for several seconds. Then, without taking his eyes off the door, he whispered back. I uploaded one. The rest was a bluff. Casey swallowed. So if they realize, we're dead. Suddenly, the manager's phone rang. He answered. His confident expression slowly faded. What? When? How many? He ended the call and cursed under his breath. One of the masked men asked. Boss? The internet. The full recording is online. Everyone froze. Casey stared at Daniel. You? Daniel blinked in surprise. It wasn't me. Ryan immediately understood. The anonymous sender. Someone else had released the evidence. Across the country, millions of phones buzzed simultaneously. The recovered dashcam video had been posted on multiple platforms at once, mirrored thousands of times before anyone could take it down. People watched in disbelief as Aileen accepted the envelope, joked about framing innocent drivers, and bragged about extorting previous victims. Within minutes, the same internet that had condemned Casey turned on Aileen. Her livestream, which she had started to reassure her followers, was flooded with new comments. She's the liar. She framed innocent people. Call the police. I donated money to this scammer? Then an even bigger bombshell appeared. 3 women posted videos of their own. Each claimed Aileen had falsely accused a boyfriend, coworker, or stranger years earlier before accepting money to settle the matter privately. One held up bank transfer receipts. Another showed old text messages. A third looked directly into the camera and said, I stayed silent because nobody believed me. I'm not staying silent anymore. Outside Daniel's workshop, the operations manager looked at the chaos unfolding on his phone. His carefully constructed scheme was collapsing in real time. He slowly lowered the device. Then he looked toward the workshop with murderous eyes. If we're going down, we're taking every witness with us. He reached into the SUV. Not for a gun. For a canister marked with a bright red warning label. Daniel saw it through the broken window and his face drained of color. Move. That's gasoline. The masked men splashed gasoline across the front of the workshop. It soaked the wooden steps, seeped under the door, and spread across the concrete floor. The sharp smell filled the air. Ryan immediately fired 2 shots. One shattered the gasoline can. The other forced one of the masked men behind the SUV. Casey, he shouted. Back door. Daniel grabbed a fire extinguisher with one hand and his laptop with the other. There isn't much time. Before they could reach the rear exit. Whoop. Whoop. Police sirens echoed from every direction. The operations manager cursed. How are they here already? A masked man answered nervously, Boss, there are too many. More sirens followed. Then came unmarked vehicles. Not local patrol cars. Black SUVs belonging to the Provincial Criminal Investigation Unit. Ryan frowned. That's not my department. Several officers wearing tactical gear surrounded the building. Drop your weapons. Hands where we can see them. The masked men scattered in panic. 2 were tackled almost immediately. Another tried to climb the back fence before being brought down by a police dog. The operations manager sprinted toward his SUV. Ryan burst through the front door despite Casey shouting for him to stop. You aren't getting away. The manager jumped into the driver's seat and floored the accelerator. The SUV shot forward. And slammed straight into a roadblock that had just been set up. Airbags exploded. Before he could recover, tactical officers smashed the windows and dragged him out. It's over. He struggled wildly. You don't know who you're arresting. An older detective stepped forward. Oh, I know exactly who you are. He flashed his badge. Special Investigation Division. We've been investigating your organization for 8 months. The manager's face turned pale. Organization? Casey caught that single word. Organization. Not scheme. Not crime. Something much larger. Hours later, Casey gave another statement. This time every word was recorded by investigators from outside the local jurisdiction. The lead detective listened carefully. When the video went public tonight, he explained, we received 27 reports within an hour. All describing similar false accusations. Casey's expression hardened. So she wasn't acting alone. The detective nodded. No. He placed a thick case file on the table. We believe Aileen was recruited by a blackmail ring. They targeted people who were alone, financially vulnerable, or unlikely to have influential connections. They would fabricate allegations, weaponize social media, then pressure victims into private settlements. Casey's fists clenched. And if the victim refused? The detective met her eyes. They were destroyed. At that same moment, officers forced open the door to Eileen's luxury apartment. Police. No response. The apartment was immaculate. Too immaculate. Closets were empty. Hard drives were missing. Every drawer had been cleaned out. On the dining table sat a single envelope. Inside was one handwritten sentence. You're looking in the wrong place. The detective slowly folded the note. She's gone. Meanwhile, hundreds of miles away, a woman wearing sunglasses boarded an international flight using a passport under a different name. She smiled as she silenced her phone. News alerts kept appearing. Breaking, influencer Aileen Hayes wanted for fraud, conspiracy, and filing false police reports. She removed the SIM card, snapped it in half, and dropped it into the airport trash. As the plane doors closed, she looked out the window and whispered with a faint smile. Catch me if you can. She believed she had escaped. She didn't know that hidden inside the designer handbag she'd carried onto the plane, stitched beneath the inner lining, was a coin-sized GPS tracker. Danielle had slipped it there during her livestream visit to the hospital, pretending to help pick up the handbag she'd accidentally dropped. Back at headquarters, a technician watched a blinking dot move across a world map. He turned to the lead detective. We've got her. The detective smiled for the first time in days. No. We've got the beginning. Now let's find everyone she worked for. The investigation exploded overnight. With the recovered dashcam footage public, victims from across the country came forward. Within 2 weeks, investigators identified 43 false accusations connected to the same blackmail network. Every case followed the same pattern: target a vulnerable person, destroy their reputation online, then demand money or property in exchange for forgiveness. The ride-hailing company's regional manager confessed after several members of the organization accepted plea deals. They revealed that Aileen wasn't chosen because she was convincing, she was chosen because she was ruthless and already had a large online following that could weaponize public opinion. Aileen, however, had disappeared overseas. Months later, an international arrest warrant was issued. Thinking the investigation had gone cold, Aileen resurfaced under a fake identity to withdraw money from an offshore account. The moment she entered the bank, plainclothes officers surrounded her. Aileen Hayes? She froze. You are under arrest for fraud, conspiracy, extortion, filing false police reports, witness intimidation, and attempted murder. She tried to run. She made it 3 steps before being tackled to the floor. At trial, the prosecution presented overwhelming evidence. The recovered dashcam footage. Bank transfers. Messages between Aileen and the blackmail ring. Livestream records. Testimony from more than 40 victims. The judge looked at Aileen. You built your fame by destroying innocent lives. She was sentenced to decades in prison without the possibility of early release for many years. Nelson, who had nearly beaten Casey to death, was convicted of aggravated assault and sentenced to prison as well. Although the court acknowledged he had been manipulated, it ruled that choosing mob violence was his own responsibility. The corrupt ride-hailing manager and several accomplices also received lengthy prison sentences. Casey's conviction was never needed, because she had never been charged. Instead, the court formally declared her innocent and ordered public corrections from the media outlets that had falsely labeled her a rapist. The ride-hailing company issued a public apology and paid substantial compensation for permanently banning her without waiting for the investigation. Her landlord apologized in tears after learning the truth. Even the nurse who had mistreated her came forward and admitted she had let public opinion cloud her professional judgment. Casey accepted the apologies politely, but she never forgot what had happened. A year later, Casey's left hand still wasn't the same. She could no longer grip as strongly as before, and driving for long hours remained painful. Instead of returning to ride-hailing work, she accepted a position helping investigators analyze digital evidence in cases involving online harassment and false accusations. When new victims walked into the office feeling hopeless, Casey would quietly tell them, "I know what it feels like when the whole world believes a lie. But evidence lasts longer than rumors." One evening, Casey visited the park with her parents and little sister. For the first time in a long while, no one stared. No one whispered. Her sister slipped her small hand into Casey's injured one. "Does it still hurt?" Casey smiled. "Sometimes. But not as much as before." They continued walking as the sun set behind them. The scars remained. But the nightmare was